So the U.S. state of Michigan is very famously split into two different parts. It has an upper peninsula and a lower peninsula. One which is about a quarter of the size of the state, which is up there called the upper peninsula, and there's also the lower peninsula that I'm currently standing on. Now, until 1957, if you wanted to travel between the two peninsulas, you had to take a ferry. And by the 1950s, this ferry was in queue for about 5 hours before a car would be able to arrive at the ferry crossing and actually getting to the other side. So for about 70 years, there were talks about possibly creating a bridge that would span the two peninsulas. And obviously technology just wasn't there when the talks first started in the 1880s, but finally by the 1930s, it was beginning to be taken seriously, and they began to look at possibly creating a bridge that spans that. And in 1957, they opened what you see here, which is the Mackinac Bridge. At the time, the Mackinac Bridge was the longest suspension bridge in the world. It no longer has that title, but it is still one of the longest suspension bridges in the entire Western Hemisphere. So if you're wondering how long the bridge is, it is a whopping 5 miles. Although I believe the longest suspension bridge in Japan is about 10 miles long, that is still just hard to fathom, and the fact that this was made in the 1950s. And needless to say, with such a long bridge, it does have its history of some controversy. Unfortunately, 5 different workers died during the construction of this bridge between 1953 and 1957, and an additional worker, who was a maintenance worker, died later on after the bridge had been completed. However, the most infamous death involving the bridge had to do with Leslie Pluhar. In the year 1989, she was driving a Yugo, and according to legend, the strong winds blew her Yugo, which is a tiny little car which was built in Yugoslavia at the time, off the bridge and into the water. And a lot of people have speculated whether or not the wind theory could have been possible. A lot of scientists discredit the wind as being capable of throwing somebody off the bridge at the speed it was going that day. However, it still remains a major Michigan legend. However, most disturbing about Leslie Pluhar's story is that the medical examiner believed that she was still alive by the time she hit the water and even survived the impact with the water, and in fact would only die after she had drowned. Although she did suffer quite a few injuries by falling into the water, it is still a big piece of Michigan controversy and is probably the darkest legacy that hangs over the bridge today. But I think the biggest takeaway from the Leslie Pluhar crash that happened in 1989 was that they have a posted speed limit on the bridge of 45 miles an hour. They believe that Leslie was going several miles over the speed limit, up to 20 miles an hour over the speed limit at the time. So basically, the Traffic Safety Association of Michigan tried to basically tell people not to speed on the bridge and use that as an example of just what not to do. However, her death on the bridge still remains largely controversial. The other bridge-related death with a motorist happened in the 1990s, where unfortunately a man swerved off and drove his Bronco off the bridge. Unfortunately, that one is much less subject to controversy, as unfortunately we believe he may have done it intentionally. But it's still a very sad story, but it is a reminder that this bridge is very dangerous and you should not take risks if you're crossing it, especially in winter. So with this very dark legacy, it may not surprise you that a lot of people are actually very afraid of crossing this bridge. There is a toll to cross the bridge of $4 for a regular car, and if you have a commercial vehicle or a motorbike, it's more or less depending on how many axles you have. However, very unique for the Mackinac Bridge is that you can actually take advantage of a state-provided service which allows you to pay somebody else to drive across the bridge for you in your car and basically take you across, because there's actually a word for people who have a fear of crossing bridges. I'll put the name of it down here, but I just think it's very interesting they even have a service for that, because I'm not gonna lie, I have to cross this bridge later today and the thought of it scares the crap out of me, because I mean, think about it, there's nothing but ice below, and sometimes the bridge is actually closed due to all the ice on it. I mean, I'm sure it's still safer than a ferry, but yeah, this bridge is just a little bit intimidating to cross, not gonna lie. Now, kind of unique about the Mackinac Bridge is that it does not allow pedestrians except for every Labor Day, I believe it is. They close the bridge so that people can walk across it, but that's the only day you're actually allowed to walk across the bridge. There is no walking path. I mean, as it is 5 miles, it's not just like a bridge in downtown Cincinnati that you can just walk to and from because it's super short. Like, this is a super long bridge. Like, if they left it open, all sorts of things could happen on that bridge they really wouldn't be able to do anything about if they're just pedestrians. So there's a very good reason why they never put a walkway on that. It was very intentional, so you literally have to take a motor vehicle of some sort to get across the bridge. But ever since the bridge was built, there became to be terms for people who lived in either the Upper Peninsula or the Lower Peninsula. According to legends, trolls lived under bridges. Anybody who lives in the Lower Peninsula after this bridge was built was considered to be a troll. Anybody who lived on the Upper Peninsula on the other side of the bridge is known as a youper. Now, 97% of Michiganders are technically trolls by this definition, which is why you probably haven't heard the term before. But youper is a very common term that is used to describe people anywhere in the Upper Peninsula, but there just aren't very many of them. So, I mean, you don't hear the term being used all that often, but the term is used sometimes, which is a little bit funny in my opinion. So Fort Vishla, Mackinac actually is right where the bridge is today. It was a colonial fort that existed in the 1700s and 1800s. It used to be originally started as like a French outpost, basically. But I just think it's kind of interesting that it's literally right under the bridge. Like, it's literally right there under the bridge. It's currently under construction. Very few things are actually open in Mackinac City during the winter. But obviously the bridge is open most days unless there's ice and, of course, the annual Labor Day walk. But the bridge is pretty much the only thing that's open this time of year and the only thing you should count on being open this time of year. In fact, even the ferry to Mackinac Island isn't even a guarantee, which is something I'm hoping to do tomorrow. And if I can't do that, I have no idea what I'm gonna do tomorrow in the UP. I gotta cross this bridge to get to my hotel tonight, so let's see how much I can get this together. Because I'm not gonna lie, I'm kinda scared to cross this thing. Now, a little unique for bridges that pay tolls is that the toll is only paid on the Upper Peninsula side where I'm at right now. I actually just drove across and it actually really wasn't as bad as I remembered. There's just this steel grate, like this empty steel grate that you can just see right down in the lake below. Fortunately, I didn't know that one half of it was covered, one half of the road was covered, so I stayed on the covered side. That made me feel a lot better. But yes, I'm on the other side of the bridge right now. But a fun fact about the Mackinac Bridge is that on the right side you see in front of me, that is Lake Michigan, and on the left side you see in front of me, that is Lake Huron. And the bridge actually bisects the two, although a fun fact is, although it says on a map they are two different lakes, they are Lake Michigan and Lake Huron, they are actually the exact same water level on either side. So even if you went to Chicago and all the way up to another city on the Lake Huron side of Michigan, they're actually the same water level, which means they're technically the same lake. So Lake Huron, Michigan is actually the world's largest freshwater lake if you count it that way, but vast majority of people just don't do that. It is a symbol of unity for the state of Michigan, which shows that even though we are separated by the Straits of Mackinac and maybe two separate pieces, and people often think it's dumb that Michigan's in two separate parts, we really are united through this bridge that connects both sides of the state.